Welcome to Mark My Words, a podcast that not only aims to inspire and teach the listener about entrepreneurship, it also aims to give my guests an opportunity to talk about their unique journey in entrepreneurship and life. So join me and my guests as we meet at the crossroads on Mark My Words. So when you live the type of life that I have lived, where people I feel have held me accountable and responsible for a lot of things, and you wind up in a lot of situations that I don't know if I want to say are not normal, but definitely, I've had a lot of obstacles in my life, and I have held a lot of people accountable in their lives, which as a result, I'm holding myself accountable, and I have certain morals and values when it comes to people and life and how, one plus one equals whatever result. I'm not even really sure exactly if anything I'm saying truly makes sense, but I am here today with the accountability guy, and as soon as I saw that Robert Hunt's niche is being the accountability guy, I was like, I gotta have this man on my podcast, and I can't wait to talk about accountability. He is also an executive coach who runs CEO groups in the DFW. They mentor each other, basically CEOs there for CEOs, and I can have him explain that more down the road. He also has a book, Nobody Cares, until you do. And I know a thing or two about that, both as the person who doesn't care until you do and the receiving end of that. Robert Hunt, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great, Mark. That was a great intro. I'm writing down all these notes of how important I am. So I should, when I feel bad, I'm gonna just listen to that intro.
Well, I practice these intros, and the more I get from the guests, like, this is just absolute gold having a guest like you. I'm like, well, I know I'm
Oh,
going to
you're
have
very
a
kind.
real easy intro because there's so much great material just off of your identity as the accountability guy. That's amazing just to go off of that. So,
Thank you. Thank you very
I,
much.
I'm all about being creative and coming up with the most unique way to introduce and just, I don't know, I'm creative. But
Right
welcome
on.
to Mark My Words, where we
Thank
will
you.
talk about other things other than me being creative. And hopefully, we will talk about being accountable. I will say I did also look at your website. You told me to look at your website and take those assessments. I didn't
Oh,
actually
good.
bid them, but I did look at them. We'll try to get into that. I should have told you before we hit record, but we were having too much fun looking at my records. So let us go first. Really, how let's go and start with your path, as I like to do, as you were a business communications major, and just
Hmm.
curious to go back in the way back machine and ask you, what were you thinking in those days? Like, where did you see yourself today as opposed to where you are now?
When I was in college being a communication major,
Yes.
oh man, I did not have a life of vision. I grew up in a pretty challenging environment as a young man. And so I did not think much past the next month. And so I wasn't doing a lot of thinking as I was going through college, certainly learning and In my journey, I worked full time, lived out on my own, went to college. And so it was a very busy life. I worked from 11:30 at night till 7:30 in the morning at a grocery store, got a quick shower, went to school, tried to stay awake during class, went home, slept for an hour, did a little bit of homework, and then went back to work. And I did that day after day because you had to. That's just how you got through college. So my grade point average wasn't great when I graduated, but it was enough to graduate. And so I took communications because I can talk better than I can do math. And so I thought it'd be easier if I go communications major, and it was. But I really just wanted to get through college to get into my career. And I think college is great for the purpose of showing you have discipline and that you can learn. But at the end of the day, I was really eager to start my career. And so get out and get going was my idea. But I didn't have much of a vision other than I want to earn a paycheck and make some money.
So, you being a business major, business communications, that for that matter, it's basically what I'm hearing is a lot of people, what they do is they will major in a variation of business because, well, you don't always really know exactly what you want to do, especially at that point in your
Yeah.
life. I
Yeah.
was kind of lucky in that I had a lot of junk getting put into my mind about what I should do, and I was getting told I should be a business major. Except only one problem. I am not the least bit mathematical. So I cooked, oh gosh, what do I always say? Applied math is like what I took my senior year. I wasn't exactly setting the world on fire in the business world. So I was getting told a lot of garbage that, from one of my parents. I'm not going to call them out, although I think I have in the past. But, but I was getting told a lot to major in business. I'm like, dude, like, don't you know me? Like, I
Yeah.
can't major in
And it doesn't
that.
really matter what you major in because how many people out there actually have the job they got a degree for? Unless you're a nurse or a doctor, it's most people they kind of get a degree and they just go do something else.
Or you work in television. So
Yeah,
I realize I'm one of the weird ones that are still in their major. And
that's
I, I've
great.
always I've always been extremely passionate about television, which just for a number of different reasons. Like I used to sit and look at the TV guides when I was like 6 years old, and I still do that. I follow Facebook groups where they show this week's TV listings from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like that passion's always
Wow.
gonna be
Wow.
there. So I'm one of the weird ones, but let's talk about you. And so basically I'm leading up to where you got the fork in the road. I see that, you were like VP marketing and sales at one point, and you were it looks like you were kind of into your field for a while. How did you become an entrepreneur and the accountability guy? Like, what changed?
Yeah, I moved to Texas, I moved away from Southern California in 2010. When I got to Texas, I was doing marketing consulting and I was really growing impatient with it. And it wasn't rewarding like I had wanted it to be in early days of my career. And I met a guy who was building peer groups through a franchise. And he was looking for facilitators who would run the groups and he'd fill the groups. He'd be the business owner and I'd work under his agreement. So I said, man, that's great. That's a fulfillment of my personal purpose in life is to help people remove the obstacles that keep them from being their best. So to have a job for that was awesome. So I jumped at doing that. And it was a really long learning curve. I really wasn't qualified to be a facilitator or an executive coach or any of that stuff. I had to learn it along the way, and it was a real challenge. But I really found that this was a fulfillment of my purpose, and I knew I had to go do it. And to me that led to the accountability guy thing because watching business owners over the years who are in the peer groups at different levels of accountability. A peer group is basically the opportunity for accountability. And one of the things we talk about in our book is that nobody can hold anyone accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable if you want to. And if you don't want to, no one's going to hold you accountable. And so you could be in a group with a bunch of people and say all this stuff and not do it, and they're not going to kick you out because that's not their job. So I watched people in peer groups who really did a great job owning it. They were really, and that's the definition of accountability is you own it. They were really, really good at that. And then I watched others who weren't. And the ones who weren't, they struggled. They weren't able to stay focused. They weren't having joy in life, and everything was a problem to them. So after enough years of doing that, and then watching it in my own life and my lack of accountability and how I made excuses for things or whined about things instead of owning it, all those things together, it led me to the place where we wrote the book, Nobody Cares Until You Do.
Now, did this also lead you to see a lot of people who were blaming others for where they were in life? Did you see a lot of that? Do you see a lot of that?
I do see a lot of that. I see a lot of that to this day. It is amazing. We as a society have lost the idea of a real accountability. We love to blame people for things. The problem with blaming someone is it just makes you mad. It doesn't actually fix anything. And when you blame someone, you're angry, but you still have no power. You're still a victim. If everything happens to you, you're a victim. If everything happens and you respond and drive it, you own that. You are now on your road to being the one who has a victorious lifestyle, as we call it. So I think for me, rather than sit and look at all my journey and the difficulties of my youth and the challenges of my life and losing jobs, getting divorced, having health issues, all that stuff, you can complain about it, but nobody cares. You need to own it and figure out what to do about it.
And you touched on an interesting point because you can complain and talk about whatever your problem is or whatever the obstacle is. And you may have some that listen and care more than others, but the bottom line is that you have to care the most. You have to
Yeah,
take
that's
the
right.
action. And I think there are some people who don't ever seem to get that.
And I think if you think of as accountability as a negative thing, you push it away because I don't need more accountability in my life. Well, you do if you really understand that it's freedom. When you own something, it's yours to do something with. If you're the victim of something, you have no power. So we say in our book, whenever you take accountability for everything in your life, is the time that you gain the power to change anything in your life. And so if you don't like your marriage, work on it, own it, do something about it. You don't like your health, your finances, your faith, whatever it is that you don't like, do something about it because if you own it, you can. And if you're going to be a victim, you can't do anything about it. You're just screwed.
So when you're coaching somebody, how do you get them to flip from not being accountable to the steps? I mean, you don't just completely 100% make a dramatic flip, I'm
Yeah.
guessing,
Boom, I'm
but
accountable. Yeah, it doesn't work
boom.
like that.
But
Yeah.
how do you coach them along to, the road of being more accountable?
You know, the first step of that is really just to become aware where you're not accountable. And then you have the option of what you want to do. I don't think that we see ourselves not being accountable. We often mistake the idea of responsible with accountable. Responsible means you did something. Accountable means you did what was necessary to give you the satisfaction you want in life. So if you have a job and you show up, you're responsible. And if you do it with excellence and you think about it and you look for others and you concern yourself with the result, then you become accountable. So I challenge the people I coach to start at first just saying, okay, where are you not satisfied? And we do the satisfaction assessment, which I mentioned is on our webpage. And then when you've declared it honestly, I mean, really honestly said, this is where I'm not happy, or this is where I'm not satisfied in these areas. And when you put it in writing and you're looking at it, you go, okay, yeah, that's how I am today. Well, then we can next step is say, well, why? Why are you like that? And if we figure out that the reason that we're like that is us, then we have the chance to do something about it. If the reason we're not happy is everybody else, we're still playing a victim and we're stuck. And so I have to help them step back and say, what would it take for you to see that as your opportunity? Now, maybe you did have horrible parents. Maybe you did go through some really hard situation. Maybe you did have a jerk boss. Okay, but now what? What are you going to do about it now? And I think that's where we start the journey towards accountability.
Right. I mean, you touched on some things that are very personal to me, while I certainly feel like my parents made some mistakes along the way. They also did a lot of good too. And I have had some terrible work experiences, and, I've had some bosses I'd rather not remember too well. And, I've had a lot of experiences, especially as somebody, I born with cleft palate and lip. I know I sound a little bit different. I know I maybe look a little bit different. And, that has led to a lot of interesting experiences in my life. And
Yeah, bet.
I have had to really take a look at myself in all these situations and really kind of sort through, okay, and sometimes for me it's hard because I have so many of these situations in my life where people are being kind of negative towards me. So it's like, am I going to just let it beat me down? Am I going to be a victim of
Right.
everything outside of that?
Right.
Am I going to try to have a clear head and say, okay, that was that, but there are other good things that have happened, and I need to take, while they need to be responsible for how they're treating me, I still have to be responsible for how I live my life,
How
how
you
I'm
respond.
dealing with it. So
Yeah.
I'm a very interesting study in accountability, I guess.
Well, you're very right on with all that, Mark. And life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. And I met a guy who lives here in the Plano area in Texas, and he has no arms and legs. And he's an adult. He's in his late 40s. He's got a wife and 4 kids, and he has no arms and legs. Now, that's a guy who could bitch and moan about his life because he really has it tough. And yet he says, if God can use a guy with no arms and legs to be his hands and feet, what's your excuse? And I think that's how we ought to look at life is that, yeah, life sucks a lot of times, but I can either choose to say I'm miserable and I'm a victim and I'm angry at the world, or I can say, well, that's where I'm at. Now, what am I going to do? And either way, you're going to go through life, but would you rather go through life as a victim, or would you rather go through life owning it and having the power to make your life the way you want it to be? Here's an example. You're running a podcast. You're doing your own thing. You've built your own opportunities. No one fed this to you. This is you. And this is the hard work you put in. You've had over 100 shows I saw. That's a lot of effort, dude. And so whether or not you have everything easy or not, it doesn't matter. It matters that you have what you have and you're making the best of it and you're owning it. And I think that's awesome.
And the road to this many episodes, it has not been easy. There have been a lot of times where things didn't go the way I wanted it to or the way I felt it should have. And you have to take accountability whether it was actually your fault or not, because
Right.
you're the one who, decided to have this, that, or the other person on the show, or made this decision or that decision at the end of the day. And I think when something doesn't go right, I think that's why I take it like very hard, because it's like I am taking responsibility and facing the truth of the fact that I hate to use the word failed, but didn't work out the way you wanted it
Well, it
to.
either worked out or you learned. I mean,
Yeah,
you didn't fail. I mean, fail means you never had another podcast. So you
yeah.
clearly have not failed. It's just that you learned. And I think man, life is all about learning. You're never done learning until you're dead. And I think as long as you're in the game, you're going to be learning and you're going to be making mistakes. That is the process of learning.
Probably one of the things that have been a game changer for me is learning that, and I guess you can view the world and our lives, and I don't know if I want to get too metaphysical, but I've heard a few times that some people view our lives as like, here on earth as a school. And that really kind of like changed my perspective a little bit on
Yeah, I agree with
life
that.
because, yeah, you got to take life seriously. It's not like I'm fifth grade and I'm skiing through, having fun and nap time. Although I guess by fifth grade, you don't really have nap time, but
I
you,
don't know,
you
maybe
know
your
what I
school.
mean. I mean, if you do have nap time by fifth grade, I went to the wrong school, but I mean, for me, I view everything as like a learning
Yeah,
experience,
it
and
is.
you try to grow. And I feel personally, you want to talk about how accountability and leading like a more honest life versus talking around things and not being truthful. I feel like so much more, you know, cleansed. Like there's nothing hanging on my shoulders or anything like that. And I feel like that's just the right way to go. I'm not necessarily here to tell people how to live their lives, but I, for
Well, I think
one,
there's
feel,
grace. I think
yeah.
there's grace in that, Mark. I mean, when you think about it, we want people to give us grace because we make mistakes. We need to do that for other people. I think when I look back and I think of what Jesus has done for me in my life and how he died for my sins and paved a way for me to know God, the grace that he gave me when I didn't deserve it, that was mercy. And then grace is the way he loves me despite that. It makes me look at other people in other situations. And when you think about your kids or you with your parents and me with my kids, we're all learning how to do our job in real time. I mean, I was growing up as an adult in front of my children. I didn't know jack about being a dad. I mean, really, when I found out we were pregnant, I went and bought a book, how to be a dad or something like that. I remember reading that. I had a bad father. He beat me and my mom many times, and I was scared to death of him. And I knew nothing about him other than just don't piss him off. And I had no idea how to be a dad when we found out we were pregnant. I'm like, well, geez, I don't know what to do. So I totally was growing up in front of my daughter. When my son was born, I was growing up in front of him, and I'm still growing up. I will be growing up until I'm dead. And so for us to have expectations that we're just going to rock it as parents, that's a little naive anymore. That whatever job you get, you think you're going to be the best employee you ever had the day you show up. I mean, it's a learning curve, it's a process, and so much stuff goes on that affects our ability to do things well. We have to set realistic expectations, but we got to give grace to people because we certainly need it in our own lives.
Oh, yeah, grace is very important. And it's something that I think if you're really aware of your experiences and you're really in touch with your thoughts and your feelings and all that stuff, you get to a point where when you see other people that you care about going through something that
Mm,
reminds you of something you might have been through, or maybe
yeah,
you haven't
absolutely.
been through it, but I know it especially affects me if I'm like, wow, this really hits home. It really reminds me of something I've been through. And
Yeah.
if somebody didn't show me enough grace or any grace, for me, I make sure, okay, I really have to show some grace here and give some thought and compassion, especially if the situation warrants it. And I don't think that that happens enough in our world today.
Whether or not they deserve the grace, I have been given grace. And so, because of what I've been given, I will dish it out to other people. They don't deserve it any more than I deserved it. And so, I'm just going to practice what has been so kindly given out to me by God that I just want to pour it out into more people. Everybody's pretty much stressed and pissed off these days. It's just kind of an angry time in our world. And I think a lot of that is just because we've gotten so overloaded financially, health wise, relationships, the inputs that come at us all day long, it's overwhelming. You get your phone constantly talking to you, barking at you, telling you what to do, and thinking, and all these distractions around the world. And then wake up first thing in the morning, we take it to bed with us, and we never get a break. There's never a downtime. So I think our whole world is stressed out and overloaded. So we need to create a world where we can be able to function better, where we unplug. That's why God demanded that we have the seventh day as a Sabbath. He says, this is a commandment you will keep. It's not a nice suggestion. He's not saying go to church and punch the clock and go back to do your stuff. He's saying take a day and really rest and really recharge your batteries and do something fun and get to know me better as a God and all these things that we could do on a Sunday. But instead, we do all the things we didn't get done on Saturday. We do them on Sunday. Or, we end up being so exhausted that come Monday, we need a break. We're not giving ourselves a favor and a chance to rest. So it's awfully hard to be kind and human to other people when we're not really giving ourselves a break along the way.
Well, on that note, this has been a really good discussion. I hate to cut it off, but I'm not ending the episode, but I want to go over your assessment a little bit because I actually have it up. I'm like basically doing this in real time. I've already filled it out, but I just want to kind of go through it if that's okay with you, just to
Sure.
kind of
Sure. I love it.
quickly break down what it's all about. So I am on the assessment for, oh my gosh, I think it's the satisfaction. So I gave myself, let's see, so I'll just run down. So personal satisfaction, business satisfaction are the two big topics here. Under
Yeah.
personal satisfaction, basically, I should even just say is 0 being horrible, 10 is awesome,
Yep.
based on Robert's scale here. So you have health, spouse and romance, friends and family, spiritual, career, money, fun and recreation, personal growth. I put health at a 5, even though maybe I'm being a little picky on health, but I graded that a 5. Spouse and romance, I graded an 8. Don't tell my wife, she probably would say you should grade it a 10. But
No, eight's great, man.
I mean, we have a great relationship. Like I really can't
And
complain.
there's
But
no way to compare a score on this. If your wife took this assessment and she gave it a 4, you'd be like, hey, what the heck? Because in her mind, she wants more time to take walks and hold hands. And she wishes that we'd sit and listen to music together. There'd be things that she wanted, but and she could say it's really off the mark because of these last two fights we had. There's all kinds of things in how we score it. We never compare these numbers. They're not relevant to anybody else except you.
fair enough. Well, keeping that in mind, spiritual, I gave it a 7. I that could be like a notch or two higher. I felt that was good number. Career 7, money 7, fun recreation a 9. That got the
Right.
highest rating.
Right.
Personal growth 7, and I can stop there before business and just ask you, what does that tell you?
Okay, it tells me first off that you are a great human being because nobody's going to take their assessment and read it to the world. So you are a wonderful guy, Mark. The whole purpose of the assessment is to give you an opportunity to be real. What you do is you take your assessment and you score how satisfied you are in those areas of your life. And then you sit back and look at it and go, why is my recreation a 9, but my health is a 7? What is it that I want to do differently about it? If something is really low, why do I see it as that way? And what do I want to do about it? And it's just a starting point of getting a reality check of what is really important to you. And the number could be relevant. If you have $10,000 in the bank, you could say, I'm an 8. My finances are great. If I have $10,000 in the bank, I might go, that's a 4 because I know that my son's college education is $10,000 a semester. So that's only one semester worth. So you can have different scales that the numbers don't necessarily tell us the same thing, but you're declaring to yourself where you're satisfied or not. And that is the beginning of accountability. And now when you see it, then you say, okay, well, I really want this score to be higher. And then if you give yourself an excuse as to why it can't be higher, that's being a victim. So if you say, I want to have my marriage be higher than that, well, I can't because I don't feel like this, or I can't because we don't do this. If you start limiting yourself, those are the lies that we tell ourselves that keep us as a victim. But at least you've declared it. And now you and your lovely bride can have comparing numbers and have a conversation about, well, why do you score this a 6 and I scored an 8? Let's talk about that. It's beautiful. Good job, Mark.
I appreciate that. And I know for health, I feel so I work mostly from home, plus the podcast. It's a very like sedentary, remote, isolated kind of lifestyle. And it's challenging to get motivated or to find the time. But here's where, and time, I mean to actually get up and move and do some of the things that would make me feel better. But where I make myself, hold myself accountable is I'm aware, first of all, that I do need to move more. So I've been trying to take more breaks and get up. And for the first few years of my current job, and my attitude has always been, I'm gonna work myself so hard that there's never gonna be a doubt in anybody's mind of how valuable I am. And I think it just comes from my own life experiences and just
Sure.
being a little insecure about, okay, I don't want people to just think, oh, well, he's got this or that obstacle and,
Yeah.
they can't be counted on. Like, no, I want people to see that I am beyond somebody that they can count on. And I've had to take a step back and relax and just say, something, I need to maybe relax a little bit. I don't think the world works quite the way that I keep, you know, seeing it as far as like I have to prove myself so hard. I
Yeah.
think there are other healthier ways to do it. So I've been trying to, just take the 5 minutes to get up and walk around. And that's basically, long story short, how I've been holding myself accountable. But I'm not where I want to be in that category. So that's why that ranks so low for me.
Okay. Well, one of the things I'll point out is that when you started the conversation, you said, well, I don't really have time to work out, or I don't really have a place to work out. So that's an excuse. And the four things that hold us back in the chapter in the book that hold us back as victim is blame, excuse, say I can't, or wait and hope. So if I blame, hey, it's cold outside, or hey, if I blame, well, I can't. If I blame the machine broke, the little stairmaster I have at home, it broke, whatever. Or if I say, hey, I don't have time, or the gym is too far away, these are all excuses that hold us back. Or if you just say, well, I can't go and try a new sport. Yeah, you can. You can try whatever it is that works good for you that gives you exercise, like a pickleball or something safe and easy. Or we just wait and hope that, well, maybe next summer I'll start this program. So as long as you're keenly aware of the times when you're causing yourself to be in the victim role, you can go, wait, 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 stop. Nobody cares. Nobody cares on my excuse. Own it. Go do something about it. You'll start to see yourself catching yourself. And we say nobody cares to ourselves, not to other people. I don't want people to listen to this podcast and run around being rude to other people. This is for you to say to you about yourself when you start to throw down some excuse or some blame or some say I can't or wait and hope. Stop and say, wait, nobody cares until I do. Now, what do I want to do about it? And that's when the rest of the book finishes out with ideas for how to get out of the victim mindset and how to be victorious in life.
And that is exactly what I'm trying to work on in that part of my life right now is to just, okay, what do I need to do? What adjustments do I need to make in order to feel like I am at the level I want to be at health wise? And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've given a lot of thought to it, but not enough action. And I have really tried to hold myself accountable and have really tried to take more action. And pickleball is actually one of the things I'm thinking about like seriously doing.
Yeah, it's fun.
I have the pickleball
The
racket, I have
paddle.
stuff. I just haven't actually played yet. So
Okay.
I
Make it happen.
I
Just
have
pick one day, put on the calendar and go do it. Do it one time. There's a good book out there called Atomic Habits. It talks about the little micro things that we do that move the needle. And so just pick a date on the calendar today. Pick a date, pick a time, block it out, go there. If the court's full up and nobody can let you on, wait the whole time. If after the hour you were going to play is gone and you couldn't get on, go back home. But at least you went there and you tried it one time. And that is the way that you start to build the muscle of the habit that you need. And then you reschedule it, you'll go again, you'll go again. Next thing you know, you get court time. Next thing you know, you have a partner. I mean, it just is that process of owning it and doing it.
Well, I couldn't have said it better, and that's actually how I'm visualizing the way my experience will go. So I
Cool.
really hope,
Cool.
as I dig into that, I hope you're right. But we have the
We
second
play
part
pickleball.
of the assessment, which I attempted to do, even though, well, let's go through it. So business satisfaction, we got personnel, sales and marketing, technology, financial, product or service, management, customer service, and finally vendor slash supplier relationships. So I attempted to do this. So personnel, I rated a 5 because I'm very happy with my own personnel performance, but I don't necessarily have a team. So that's something that I'm thinking a lot about. So I'm right in the middle there. Sales and marketing, a 2. I could be making more time to advertise this show. I've been working like 60-hour weeks for the past year. It's been a lot, but that actually lines up with kind of, I guess, the same mentality as health and just
Yeah.
making the
What was
time.
that? What was that you just gave me? That
I
was an
gave
excuse.
time.
Yeah, well, you said I haven't had time to go promote to do sales and marketing, right? So that's an excuse. I'm helping you see that when we give ourselves the answer, sometimes we're very quick to go, well, I haven't had time. Well, then make time. A
Well,
lot
that
of times we get caught up in things that suck up our time. And I'm guarantee you, if you took one half of an hour off of your television or your Instagram time or your Facebook time or whatever you spend your social media or digital time on, if you took one half an hour a day away from any of those things you do and you put it towards something super important, I guarantee you will see results. So when we say we don't have time, what we mean is we're not using our time effectively.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm doing this kind of on the spot because I want you to hold me accountable. I
Well, I
want to
can't hold you accountable, but you can hold yourself accountable while they teach you the points of awareness, and you'll get better at this. I mean, I see myself all the time now when I throw something out. It's an old habit of talking a certain way, and my wife will look at me like, "Really?" And I go, "Well, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. That was an excuse. I'm sorry." And so, but I'm catching myself, and it's just taking practice. But the more you do it, the more it becomes part of who you are.
I totally agree. And I am going to keep pushing on. So technology, I gave it a 6 because while I've got all the tools I need, I don't necessarily have an elaborate Joe Rogan production here. But I mean, I've got what I need. I'm cognizant of how I want things to be presented. And I know there is room for improvement, but I'm fairly happy. Uh, Financial, I don't know if that's really just fun as how happy I am as far as what I'm making or how I'm balancing. I mean, I guess I'm thinking of it more in, just my own world. So,
Well, from a
finance,
business perspective, you'd want to say, is the podcast supposed to generate money? And if it's not, then you shouldn't be happy. If you're doing it because you want to do it, whether it makes any money or not, then you're fine. Unless it's costing you $50 every time you get on the air with me, then you got to think, well, maybe I'm losing money, so I got to do something to at least to offset the cost. But that financial is just another KPI that you measure the performance of your business world.
well, I rated that a 2, and I know there is room for improvement. I've had some inroads with that, but could definitely be better. And I'm sure you could talk to some people very successful who might still give it a 2. And that actually, I feel like that goes back to a point I feel like you were making earlier. And I think you know that point even better than I do. But just talking this through makes me think of that. Um, Product or service, gave that a seven. Management, a seven, because I manage myself, but I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I could be a little bit better. Customer service, I rated that a five, and then vendor or supplier relationships, and I'm probably being a little too hard on myself on the last two, but I gave that a
Well,
six.
then you
I
could figure out why, right? Write down why you scored those numbers. And the more you get information written down, the more you'll understand maybe you gave it a bad score, or maybe it's true. Maybe like for customer service, when you and I had our pre-call, I thought that was good customer service because you not only vetted me to make sure I'd be a good guest for your show, but you got me clear of what to expect. We talked about the structure. So from a customer service perspective, I think you're doing good. But your vision of what it looks like, maybe I do this and I do that, and I didn't do those things. I had a lady after I was on our podcast send me a handwritten note with some little stickers in it. And it's just a little sweet little card. And I thought, how precious is this? She actually asked me my address. So she wouldn't have had my address otherwise. So in her vision of customer service, that included a handwritten note. So she had to get my address. She had to get a card. She had to get stickers and all that. I think that's her vision of customer service. So as you look at your situation, you decide what it should look like to be excellent. And against the goal of excellence, if you know that you should be doing these things, you're not doing them, there's your score. But now you know where to go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I really, as I ran through that, I'm like, wow, this is really a great way to take a look at yourself and assess yourself. Because after all, you're aiming to help people like me and CEOs to take that look and take that step back and really hold yourself accountable, whether
Right.
it's good or it's an area that needs improvement. And I thought this was a great opportunity to highlight that, just, put me on the spot, which I
I love
love.
it. You're awesome. Now print that out. There's a button that says save or export it. It'll create a PDF and you can download it or you can email it to yourself, I think. Let me know if it works. I think it should. Um, but then save it and date it and say, today's October 21, put a date on it and then put it away. And then 6 months from now, go back and take the score again. That's why we have it on the website. You can do it as many times as you want and then see how you're progressing and go, I did a lot of things here and I really see the result. It's a great tool to help you stay focused, but to be a reality check of how you're doing. You could have your wife take one and you could compare it. You could, engage other people in your team and have them take the assessment and talk about it. To me, it's just a great tool to use as a place of getting focus of what I want my life to be like.
So, as you use this survey in your own business, your own coaching, what else is important to you? Like, what are you hoping your clients get out of your coaching at the end of your time with them?
I want them to live the life they really want. That really is, I think people have given up hope. I think hope is the best treasure of all because when you've lost everything, you still have hope. And I think that if I can get them to dream again and to go, when I first started this company, I thought it was going to be like this. Well, what happened? Oh my gosh, everything happened. And they get beat down and tired and frustrated. And I don't want that for them because they take that beat down, tired, frustrated mindset home. And then there's no joy and there's no fun at home. And then their family suffers. And they get angry at God and they shake their fist at God like he didn't do a good job. And all these things are things that could be changing, but they've lost hope. And so I want to ask them what they want, talk about what that would look like, help them get focus and clarity, and then help them take the first step. It's all their journey. They do all the work, but my job is to help them remove the things that keep them from being their best. So I've got to be able to ask them questions and challenge them and give them some direction, but they do all the work. So I just want to help them get hope again. That's my desire.
And entrepreneurship, it's challenging and it can be very lonely and solitaire and all those things. So,
Yeah.
having that support system, and even though you're taking responsibility for you, having that support system along the way, that means everything. I mean, I know just for me to do episodes with awesome people like you, it goes a long way even for me because it reminds me of why I'm putting in the effort and why I'm doing all this, even though I do have a wonderful full-time job at this point. I mean, I could just say, the heck with mark my words. I'm not doing that. But I have a lot of goals for myself. There's a lot of things beyond just being a day-to-day employee. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a lot of things I want to accomplish and
Sure.
want that like a certain kind of fulfillment in my life. And I feel like you have to want something at least kind of similar to build something out of thin air, like Mark My Words or like the accountability guy. You gotta want something, a certain fulfillment. There has to be something driving you. There's a reason that
Oh
you're
yeah.
doing it. And I think it's great that you're helping people to kind of reel them in and get them to see and to have some hope.
Yeah, thank you. That is my purpose in life. My purpose in life is specifically to help people remove the obstacles that keep them from being their best. I have a job that lets me do that. I wrote a book that helps people do that. And I want to take this around the world. I have coaching clients across the United States. I can do virtual work. I can do something in person. I'd love to go and do workshops in countries around the world. So I think there's a lot of exciting days ahead as we really help people understand the freedom and hope that is found in a life of accountability.
Well, what's next for you, the accountability guy, as far as growth in your own business? Is there, other than the wonderful things you just mentioned, is there anything like that you want to do to grow your brand?
Um, I'm not concerned about growing my brand. I'm concerned about changing more people's lives, and then my brand will catch up with me along the way. The focus this year has been about adding more clients to my business because I want to change more lives. And yeah, I make more money, but the passion and the joy I get from helping someone live the life they want gives me great joy. And I happen to be able to make a living out of it, which is really cool. So I started another group this year for financial advisors or financial leaders in companies, CFOs, controllers, that kind of thing. And I have my safety managers group and the HR managers group and the CEO peer group and our trusted advisor group. So I have lots of groups going, lots of clients. I just want to continue to have more and more lives that are changed by my life. God has blessed me with an amazing life, and I want to use it wisely to bless others. So I'm looking for opportunities. I'm looking for places to go and teach and share and encourage people. That's my joy.
I love that answer. That's a wonderful answer. And this has been an amazing conversation. And now we are at the point where we're getting towards the end, sadly. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody how they can work with you, how they can get that awesome assessment that I put myself on the spot with, and anything else that you want to promote.
Yeah, the easiest way to get that assessment is to go to the website, nobodycaresbook.com. That's where Mark's looking at right now. And you'll find it under the resource page. Was it under the resource page? I think it was.
I think it was, yes.
Yeah.
I had it pulled up on my computer. I'm like, don't forget it. We got to do it.
So go to nobodycaresbook.com and you can take the assessment for free. We don't charge you for it and we don't collect your data. We don't want your personal information. We want you to be radically transparent as you take that. And then, of course, my contact information is in there, or if you want to reach Salem, his is on there also. And contact us and let us know what your journey's like. Tell us what your satisfaction assessment told you. If you ordered the book and you want to walk through the journey and keep us posted as you're going, we'd love to hear your story. You can buy a copy of the book there at that website. It's also available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all those other good places. But we prefer you buy it from us so we can have you in our database and update you when we have a workshop come into your area. or if we're doing something online that we want to include you on. So nobodycaresbook.com. For your show, Mark, I created a special website address called Nobody Cares POD, as in podcast. If you go to nobodycarespod.com and you put in the word Mark, I will send you a copy of my book for free to the first two people who fill out that contact form. Give me your address. And if you really want the book and you really want to read it and you can't afford it, I'll give you one for free. Just fill it out and I'll mail it to you because I want to change people's lives. And I'm honored to be able to do that. We'll be able to send those out to the people who listen to your podcast and stay all the way to the very end.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time today. And thanks again for taking this time out of your busy life to hang out and talk about accountability. Really appreciate it. It was a ton of fun. And again, this was Robert Hunt, also known as Robert J. Hunt, the accountability guy. And he is an executive coach. He also runs a CEO group in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And as he has mentioned, he wrote the book, Nobody Cares, until you do. And I thank you very much for being on Mark My Words.
Thank you, Mark. You're a great host, and I appreciate the chance to be on your show.
Well, you were a fantastic guest, and I know you got somewhere to be. So thanks for
Yeah.
being here, and thanks for listening.
All right,
Bye
brother.
for now. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to listen to Mark My Words. If you would like to connect with me beyond the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt, where I will be talking about entrepreneurship, careers, and anything else that is on my mind. You can also connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at Nimrod1979 and Nimrod79 respectively. This podcast also has a page on Instagram at Mark My Words. And finally, if you want to leave me a voicemail or check out what I'm up to with the podcast, come find me at podpage.com/mark-my-words. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with a new episode soon. Bye for now.